Good day, class. Welcome to Government at Your Study Part. Okay. In today's class, we're looking at our past questions today. The goal is towards our past question to see how uh, how Jamb, Waec, and other examination body ask questions mostly on those topics you have brought touch and the ones that has not been what explained in what in the class. Okay. So this is how we're going to do it. By the time we start writing the questions on the board, and we start looking at it year by year, okay, you will get what familiarized to how they ask what questions and how you can pick what the right answers. And one of the benefits of looking at past questions is this: by the time we start the right answer, we see reasons why the answer is what is the correct one, and with that you get more explanation to the answer. And you also have platform to ask questions if you are not what clear. Okay, that's why we have the class. Okay, ask questions that need what clarification on. Okay, so today we start by solving what jam questions today. So I'll just pick a year from the past question and we'll start looking at it. Okay. Okay, welcome back. Let's start this first year. Okay, this is UTME 20, 2021. So I'm on year 2021. Okay. Look at the first question here. The type of electoral system. The type of what electoral system where the electorate where the electorate is not directly involved in voting for the head of government is called A. Absolute majority, B. Electoral college, C. First past the post, and D. None of the above. Now let's put this down. This is our first question. This is our first question. Now, This question is under what? Election. Okay? It's under what? Election. And under election, we also look at electoral what? System and types of what? Election. Okay? We need to understand that one of these options is a type of what? Election. Use here. Okay? Where the electorate are not directly. If they are not directly, that means they indirectly, okay? Indirectly, the people what are used to what choose their representatives during what election. Now let me use the question. This is the question number one. The type of electoral system, okay, where the electorate. Now, who are the what electorates? Electorate here or electorate in government means what? The eligible voters. Eligible what? Voters that are qualified to vote in an election. Those are people that we call what? The electorate, okay? Is not directly involved in voting, okay? For the head of government is called that. So the right answer here is what? Electoral what? College. Now in electoral college, the electorate are not what? Directly what? Involved in voting for the candidate of their choice. When it comes to what? The platform of what? Head of what? Government. Okay. Now they elect representatives who will now what? In return, choose their representatives on their behalf. So that type of election is called electoral what? College. Now we still have other type of election aside this electoral college. But now we can categorize electoral college under indirect what? Election. We can categorize under what? Indirect what? Election. So we have indirect election. We have what? Direct election. Okay. We have what? General election. We have primary election. We have by election. We have plebiscite. We have referendum. We have runoff / second ballot election. Like I said the other time, I said this electoral college, which is the right answer here, can be categorized under what? Indirect election. I want to pass Jamb question. So we asked that an example of indirect election is dash. What's the right answer? Electoral what? College. This is how to know the right what? Answer. Now, direct election is when the what? The electorate pick their representatives by themselves. That's what we call what? Direct election. While general election is the election that is what? That is followed after what? Primary election, where political party have what? Have given us are giving the electoral commission the names of their flag bearers. That is the name of people that what will represent the interest of their party at different what level, probably at presidential level, at the governorship level, at what local government what level. Okay, then we now have what general election, and the person that is declared the winner now what has entitlement to that what position. Primary election is the type of election that is conducted within the political party. That we call what? The primary what? Election. Okay. Now, by election is the election conducted to fill in a vacant position. Okay, that we call by election. Now, these two, plebiscite and referendum, they are both what? A yes or no vote. Okay. Now, this is what? A yes or no vote used on what? Minor issue that does not affect what? National issues. Okay. Where referendum is what? A yes or no vote that is what used at what? National level. Issues that affect majority of the people. Okay. And runoff and second ballot election. This type of election that we have when there is what a tie that will now what a winner. So there will be another what preceding what election called what second ballot election. So these are other what types of election that is different from the indirect election. Don't forget, I mentioned that electoral college is a form of what indirect election. I want to believe that with this question, we have been able to know the other types of what election and their meaning. So let's pick the second question, number 2. The second question. The same year, question 2. One of the following was responsible for the opposition of the indirect rule system. By the educated elite in southern Nigeria. Option A, taxation. B, respect for the people's culture. C, non-recognition non-recognition of educated elite. And D, existence of warrant chiefs. Now, this was question 2. One of the following was responsible for the opposition of the indirect rule system. About the indirect rule system by the educated elite in southern Nigeria. You can see that from the question, I underline the word indirect rule system. Okay, as student preparing for Jamb, you have to understand the concept of what indirect rule. Now, what do you want to know about indirect rule? Firstly, you need to understand the meaning of what the indirect rule. Okay. Now, if you ask to define indirect rule, how do you define indirect rule? Let me explain. Now, indirect rule can be defined as a British policy of administration. A what? A British what? Policy of what? Administration. Now, under a topic called colonial administration, your government, colonial administration, we have it divided into 2 categories. We have the British colonial administration and we have what? The French colonial administration. Now, the British colonial administration, okay, adopted a policy of administration called what? Indirect rule system. Okay. Why that of French administration, colonial administration, they adopted a policy called what? Direct rule, which is now further divided into what? Policy of assimilation and policy of association. But this question focuses on British colonial administration. So now I'm trying to define the meaning of what? Indirect rule system. So indirect rule system can be defined as what? The British policy of administration that involves the use of traditional rulers and chiefs as intermediaries between the British government and their subjects. So let me just explain it here. Indirect rule, indirect rule can be defined as a British policy of administration, a British policy of what? Administration that involves the use of traditional rulers slash chiefs as intermediary between the British government and their subjects. Now, what is the meaning of the British subjects? Now, those countries that they colonize are referred to as what? The British what? Subjects. In West Africa, okay, those days, the British subjects include what? Nigeria, Ghana, Gambia, and Sierra Leone. Okay, so the use of what? Traditional chiefs or rulers as intermediary between what? The British government and their subjects is called what? The indirect rule. And now, who introduced indirect rule to Nigeria? We need to understand that. We need to what? Understand that. Who introduced what? Indirect rule to Nigeria. Okay. Now, the first time we have indirect rule introduced into Nigeria system was what? 1900. But in that 1900, the indirect rule system was only adopted in the northern part of what? Nigeria. So 1900, indirect rule was what? Introduced in the northern parts of Nigeria. Then we used to call it Northern Protectorate. Okay, that was the first region or the first northern part that was adopted was indirect rule, the Northern Protectorate. What year? 1900. Okay, now the second time we have indirect rule used in Nigeria was also what? 1914, and this was used in the whole of what? Nigeria. That was when Sir Frederick Lord Lugard was given the title Father of Indirect Rule System. Okay, now indirect rule in the whole of what? Nigeria. Indirect rule in the world, whole of what? Nigeria. Through the what? Establishment of the constitution known as what? Nigerian Council of 1914. And this man, Sir Frederick Lord Lugard, was given the title Father of what? Indirect rule system. Now we have the understanding of what? Indirect rule system. Now, one of the features of indirect rule system, we have it in what? In this option. that made what? The educated elite to protest or to oppose indirect rule system in Nigeria. And one of the features is that what? The indirect rule system excluded the educated elite in Nigeria. The system excluded. What was excluded there? The system do not what? Use or make use of what? Educated elite. Instead, the system employed the service of traditional rulers and chiefs. So if you look at this option now, the right answer is that what? Non-recognition. Non what? Recognition of what? Educated elites. Instead, they make use of what? Illiterates and traditional rulers or chiefs. That's how together. So that is the right answer to question 2. I want to believe that in this question 2, we have been able to know the real meaning of what? Indirect rule system, and we have been able to know who is the pastor as well, father of what? Indirect rule, and also I've been able to convince us that the first time indirect rule system was introduced in the Nigeria system was what? 1900, but in the Northern Protectorate. And the second time was what? 1914 in the whole of what? Nigeria. So the establishment of Nigerian Council of what? 1914, which made what? Sir Felix Lugard our first governor general. So let's look at the third question for today. Third question for today. Okay, number 3. Don't forget we're working on Jamb 2021. During the period 1960 to 1966, Nigeria was governed. Nigeria was what? Governed under the option A, presidential system of government. B, Westminster system of government. Then we have C, confederal system of government. And lastly, D, unitary system of government. That is our third question.